And I'd like to enter this conversation with also acknowledging an ancestor who inspired our work in food systems. For me, I'd like to acknowledge my grandfather who lived and worked on a sugar plantation on Maui as a maintenance engineer for the Punane Mill. He is the one who shared with me Hawaiian wisdom. He'd call it in the old days, he would say. And one of the things he taught most passionately was about malama aina, or stewardship of the land. He also taught about various uses of native plants, including this kukui nut necklace I'm wearing that he polished for me. The kukui nut was used for light. It's an oil-based nut, so the Hawaiians would light it and it'd be used for light. So he also told me about the wrongful overthrow of the Hawaiian government in 1893 by American sugar barons and the role his grandfather, my great-grandfather, had in opposing the overthrow. So at the time my grandfather passed this knowledge on to me, Hawaiian language was almost extinct. The issue of the overthrow wasn't really being taught in the schools, and he was determined that our culture would not suffer erasure. So I want to begin this conversation in his honor and invite you to acknowledge an ancestor of yours if you'd like.
Sure. So I always think about my great-grandfather on my mother's side because he was born in the late 1850s and he grew up a young Lakota boy during a really tumultuous time period where he saw a lot of battles between the Oglala and the United States government, even up to the point where he was at the Battle of Little Bighorn when he was 18 years old. And just seeing the aftermath of everybody getting pushed onto the newly formed Pine Ridge Reservation, to see the aftermath of the Wounded Knee Massacre in 1890, and just to see so much as kids getting pushed into boarding school and learning to speak English and being pushed into Christianity, and even some of his kids growing up to fight for the U.S. government. So I feel like there's so much that one person witnessed at such a crucial time, because for the work that we do, when I was kind of researching, what are indigenous foods and indigenous food systems, it was just that realization of how recent this knowledge base has been missing.
Mm-hmm.
Because my grandfather would have been the last in my line of ancestry to maintain 100% of their indigenous education and knowledge base. And I just look at my own, I was born in 1974, so 100 years before my birth, all my Lakota ancestors still had that education. So within less than a century before my birth, we lose all of that knowledge base, or a large portion of it, and there's so much to fix. There's so much to understand and to figure out. And this path that I've created and that I have a lot of people working with me on, there's just so much to learn, and I'm really excited of just having my entire lifetime of education in front of me.